Dust and smoke covered the battlefield, where the clash of swords and the thunder of horses' hooves were shaking the earth. It was not merely a battlefield of war, it had become the final test of faith and survival. On one side stood an army as countless as the waves of the sea, and on the other side, beneath the shadow of the Islamic banner, stood a small but determined group. A band of warriors who knew that in this battle, either victory would become history or martyrdom would become eternal honor. In that storm-filled moment, Sultan Jalaluddin Khwarazm Shah stood among his soldiers, a commander who now had only two paths left before him: victory or martyrdom. But for those who long for martyrdom, even defeat becomes a blessing, a path that earns them acceptance in the court of the Almighty. With this conviction, Sultan Jalaluddin made his decision. This battle would no longer be fought merely to resist, but to deliver a decisive strike. He resolved that either he would tear through the enemy lines and achieve victory, or wear the crown of martyrdom on that very battlefield. With this determination, he began preparing for a direct attack on Genghis Khan himself. Yet this assault was not the result of reckless courage. It was a carefully calculated military strategy. Quietly and discreetly, the Sultan began withdrawing several units from the relatively secure formations of his left wing and transferring them into the center of the army. Everything was done with such secrecy that the Tatar left flank could not detect the change, because if the enemy had discovered this weakness, the consequences could have been devastating. In reality, a portion of the Sultan's left wing had already been sent earlier to support the right flank. Now, additional soldiers, following the Sultan's new orders, were being moved into the heart of the army. Slowly but steadily, a large portion of the Islamic army's left wing was transferred to the center and the right flank, leaving behind only a handful of soldiers and a few archers to guard the position. But it is important to understand one thing. A seasoned and battle-hardened commander like Sultan Jalaluddin was not so naive that he would leave a vital section of his army weak without reason. The reduction of forces on the left flank was not negligence, it was a harsh necessity. Because the Sultan's entire army was not even 1/10 the size of the enemy forces, the center and the right flank, which were directly engaged with the Tatars, were already suffering from a severe shortage of manpower. With every passing moment, they desperately needed fresh soldiers. If the left flank of the Islamic army had not been protected by the natural barrier of the mountains, the Sultan might not have been able to spare even a handful of men to reinforce the fighters at the front. That is why, because the left flank was relatively secure, soldiers were withdrawn from there to strengthen the center and the right wing. Because if reinforcements had not arrived from the left, the right flank and the center could have collapsed at any moment. The Sultan fully understood that reducing the numbers on the left flank created the risk of losses there. Yet, despite that risk, he considered it necessary to redeploy those soldiers to the other fronts, because if he had not done so, defeat was almost certain. The center and the right flank, which were directly fighting the enemy, could have shattered at any moment due to the shortage of men. In moments like these in war, a commander must prioritize the immediate danger over fears of what might happen later. The left flank, from which troops had been withdrawn, was for the moment safe from a direct assault. And even if the enemy attempted to attack from that direction, the rugged mountains would break their momentum, and the handful of archers stationed on those heights could prove more than enough to block their advance. It must be remembered that this battle was being fought under circumstances where only two outcomes were possible: total victory or total defeat. Only a few hours would decide the fate of history. There was no path of retreat and no time left to make long-term plans. In such brutal moments, every great commander finds himself standing at a dangerous crossroads, where he is given only a single moment to make a decision. And in such moments, brave generals do not hesitate. They choose a path immediately and throw their entire strength into the battlefield. In those fragile and decisive moments, Sultan Jalaluddin made the same choice. A choice that held the hope of avoiding immediate defeat, and perhaps the faint spark of victory. And he abandoned the path that might have offered temporary safety, but could never have changed the course of history.
After further strengthening the center of the army, Sultan Jalal ad-Din raised his eyes toward the sky for a moment. It was the kind of moment when human strategy reaches its limits and trust in the absolute power of Allah becomes the only true support. In the Sultan's heart now remained only one intention: to kill Genghis Khan and end this great menace forever. With this determination, he gathered his chosen warriors and launched a fierce assault directly toward the heart of the Tatar army. The attack was so sudden and so violent that the front lines of the Tatars, despite their desperate efforts, could not stop the storming charge. The Sultan's sword flashed like lightning, and with every strike it tore through the bodies of his enemies. His rock-splitting blade kept piling up corpses, and the ranks that the Tatars believed to be unbreakable were shattered within moments. During this chaos, Sultan Jalal ad-Din's gaze suddenly fixed upon a distinct Tatar banner waving in the distance. He immediately understood that was the place where Genghis Khan stood. His pace became even faster. In his heart burned only one desire: to bring the worst enemy of Islam before his eyes and sever his head from his body. Crushing through the enemy ranks, he finally reached the elite guard unit of Genghis Khan. There, thousands of armored soldiers stood with naked swords drawn, forming a powerful protective ring. And in their midst sat a tall man on horseback, broad-shouldered and powerfully built. His eyes moved sharply from side to side, watching the battlefield with alert caution. The marks of age were visible on his face, faint lines upon a wide and intimidating countenance, and streaks of white in his long beard. This was Genghis Khan, the man whom history calls the greatest killer of nations. The moment Sultan Jalal ad-Din's eyes fell upon him, flames of hatred and fury ignited in his gaze. He launched such a furious attack that the ranks of armored guards were thrown into chaos within seconds. Before the eyes of Genghis Khan, the shadow of death began to hover. The hand of the son of Ala ad-Din Muhammad Khwarazm Shah was now only moments away from reaching his throat. A few brave warriors, fighting their way through the guards, came dangerously close to Genghis Khan himself. Genghis Khan managed to escape, but his horse was struck down by the warriors and collapsed to the ground. That bear of the Gobi Desert did not dare to stand before the lion of Khwarazm in that moment. In this test of courage and bravery, he had already been defeated by the Sultan. Instead of honor and pride, he chose his life. He quickly mounted another horse and with a handful of guards turned his back on the battlefield and fled. Within moments, he disappeared into the swirling clouds of dust and vanished from the sight of the warriors. This conduct of Genghis Khan bears witness to a truth, that he was not as honorable or as brave as he is often believed to be in history. Yes, in cunning, opportunism, and ruthless cruelty, he truly had no equal. But the story of the battlefield did not end there. Although Genghis Khan had escaped with his life, the fire of this battle was about to blaze even more fiercely. The Tatar army, upon hearing that their leader had nearly been killed, was now mad with rage and thirst for revenge. And on the other side, Sultan Jalal ad-Din and his warriors were still standing firm on the battlefield. They knew that the next few moments would decide not only the fate of the battle, but the course of history itself. In the next part, we will see to what turning point this battle reached. Will the Lion of Khwarazm be able to stop this bloodthirsty storm? Or will the Tatar flood swallow the Islamic army within it? The decision is yet to be made.